Ever wondered why, as we age, we sometimes feel like people just start drifting away? Are there hidden reasons why people might start secretly resenting us in our later years? It's a question many of us don't think about, but the truth is, aging can subtly change the dynamics of our relationships, often in ways we don't even realize. As we grow older, we may find that people who were once close to us begin pulling away or seem distant. In today's video, we'll uncover 5 surprising reasons why people secretly start hating you as you age. These are not just random acts of malice. They stem from changes in habits, attitudes, and expectations. Through the stories of older individuals who've lived these experiences, we'll also explore what we can learn and how we can navigate these challenges to keep our relationships strong. So stick around, and let's dive into these often overlooked aspects of aging and connection. Reason number 1. You become set in your ways. Meet Mr. Harold, an 80-year-old man who's always been proud of his routines. Every morning, without fail, he makes his tea exactly the same way. 2 spoonfuls of sugar, a splash of milk, no more, no less. His furniture is arranged just so, with each chair and table in its perfect spot. His home is a reflection of his habits, and for years his children admired this sense of order. But over time, as Harold grew older, something changed. His children started to notice that he wasn't as flexible as he used to be. When they suggested a new way to do things, perhaps rearranging the living room for better space or using a new method to brew tea, Harold resisted. In fact, he became downright stubborn. What once seemed charming, his attention to detail, now felt like a rigid unwillingness to adapt. As we grow older, it's easy to fall into the comfort of routine. We become attached to the way things have always been, and with that attachment comes a reluctance to change. Whether it's the small details like how we prepare our meals, or bigger things like adjusting to new technology or changes in lifestyle, we often find comfort in sticking to what we know. But this rigidity can start to alienate those around us, especially younger family members who may see our unwillingness to adapt as inflexibility or even selfishness. For Harold's children, it wasn't just about rearranging the furniture. It became a symbol of something deeper. They began to feel that their father wasn't willing to accept their input or consider different perspectives. It's frustrating when someone you love, someone who once embraced change, suddenly seems so set in their ways. The more Harold resisted, the more his children felt pushed away, and what started as minor disagreements eventually turned into a rift in their relationship. When we hold on tightly to our routines and resist change, we can unintentionally send the message that we don't trust others' judgment or that we're not open to new ideas. The world around us keeps evolving, and if we refuse to evolve with it, it can lead to misunderstandings and resentment. Harold's children weren't trying to control him. They just wanted him to embrace the opportunities for improvement, for comfort, and for connection. That come with change. But the lesson here isn't that we should abandon all of our routines. In fact, routines can be incredibly comforting, especially as we age. However, it's important to remain open to adjusting them when necessary. Change doesn't always have to mean losing our identity or our sense of stability. Sometimes it can be an opportunity to grow closer to those we love by showing them that we're willing to listen, adapt, and compromise. So whether it's something as simple as trying a new way of brewing tea or being more open to the changes suggested by loved ones, the key is to stay adaptable. Age doesn't have to make us rigid. By embracing change and being open to new perspectives, we can continue to enrich our relationships and enjoy a more fulfilling life, no matter how old we get. Reason number 2. You start overbearing. Advice. Giving Sophia, a 75-year-old woman, had always been the wise matriarch of her family. Her children, grandchildren, and even neighbors often sought her counsel on everything from relationships to financial decisions. But lately, something had changed. Sophia, perhaps feeling the weight of her many years of experience, started offering unsolicited advice more and more. Whether it was telling her daughter how to raise her grandchildren or lecturing her son about his career choices, Sophia seemed to have an opinion on everything. What once was a welcomed and cherished resource now felt overwhelming to her family. Her children, who once turned to her for wisdom, started avoiding her, feeling that every conversation had turned into a lecture. They didn't just feel advised, they felt criticized, like their every choice was wrong. The desire to share our life lessons is completely natural as we age. After all, we've lived through a lot, and we want to pass on the knowledge we've gained. However, the challenge lies in how we deliver that wisdom. What might be intended as helpful advice can easily come across as condescending or judgmental, especially if it's not asked for. When we offer unsolicited advice, it can sometimes feel like we're undermining the decisions of others, even if we don't mean to. Sophia's children didn't want to feel like they were being parented again. They wanted to feel like they were trusted to make their own choices. Sophia's situation is a perfect example of how well-meaning advice can inadvertently create distance in relationships. Her children started feeling resentful not because they didn't value her wisdom, but because they began to perceive it as constant criticism of their lives. It's a delicate balance, offering guidance without crossing the line into telling others how they should live. Over time, the once warm and loving relationship between Sophia and her children grew strained. They felt stifled by her constant suggestions, which made them hesitant to spend time with her. It wasn't that they didn't appreciate her, it was that they felt her presence was a reminder that they were failing in her eyes. The key issue here is that advice giving, especially in older age, needs to be given thoughtfully and with respect for the autonomy of others. It's easy to forget that people, especially grown children, want to feel independent. They no longer rely on us in the same way they did when they were younger. While they might still value our opinions, they want those opinions to be shared in a way that feels supportive rather than controlling. It's essential to ask ourselves, is the advice we're giving being requested, or are we offering it because we feel the need to guide regardless of whether it's wanted or not? The lesson here is that listening is just as important as giving advice. In fact, sometimes it's even more valuable. Instead of jumping in with our thoughts and opinions, we can offer our wisdom through listening and letting others come to us for help when they're ready. This fosters mutual respect and understanding and keeps relationships from feeling one-sided. Sophia's children likely would have welcomed her insights if they had felt more like a conversation and less like a directive. So, as we age, we should be mindful of when to step back and when to share. Offering advice can be a beautiful way to connect, but only if it's given with care, timing, and respect for the other person's boundaries. By listening as much as we speak, we can ensure that our wisdom is not just heard, but also appreciated. This balance is key to maintaining meaningful relationships as we get older. Reason number 3, you become too dependent. George, a spry 70-year-old, had always prided himself on his independence. He was the kind of man who could fix anything around the house, manage his own finances, and take care of himself without asking for help. But after a fall that left him with a fractured ankle, things started to change. At first, George needed a little help from his daughter, Anne, to get around and take care of daily tasks. However, as time passed, his need for assistance grew. He began asking Anne to help with cooking, cleaning, and even managing his medical appointments. What had started as a temporary necessity soon turned into a constant expectation. Anne, who had always been close to her father, found herself becoming his primary caregiver. As the months went on, she began to feel overwhelmed and eventually resentful. She longed for the independent father she once had, but instead she found herself burdened with the role of caretaker, feeling like her own life was on hold. As we age, It's natural for our physical and sometimes mental health to decline, making it harder to do things for ourselves. There's no shame in needing help, and accepting it is a part of the aging process. However, when that help becomes excessive or one-sided, it can put a strain on relationships. For Anne, her father's growing dependency started to feel like an obligation rather than an act of care. The balance shifted from mutual love and respect to a sense of duty that weighed heavily on her. Over time, the dynamic changed. What was once a father-daughter relationship built on shared experiences now felt imbalanced, with Anne becoming the caretaker and George becoming the dependent one. This scenario is not uncommon. Many older individuals find themselves in a position where they need help, and at first, it may seem like a small ask. But over time, as needs increase, the burden can shift entirely onto those who care for us, which can lead to feelings of resentment. When we become too dependent on others, especially family members, it's easy for them to feel trapped in a cycle of caregiving. Anne didn't resent her father, but she resented the loss of the independent relationship they once shared. She felt guilty for feeling overwhelmed, but the constant responsibility left her little time for her own life, her own family, or even her own self-care. The lesson here is about finding a balance between accepting help and maintaining as much independence as possible. Dependency doesn't have to mean losing your sense of self. George, for instance, could have looked into other resources like home health aides or community programs that would allow him to maintain his autonomy while still receiving the assistance he needed. By diversifying the support system, he could have avoided placing too much pressure on Anne and helped preserve the relationship. It's also important for the caregiver, like Anne, to set boundaries and communicate openly with their loved ones. If someone's dependency is starting to feel overwhelming, it's okay to voice those concerns. Relationships, especially those between parents and children, should remain reciprocal, caring for one another without one person feeling like the burden is all theirs to carry. The key is to approach the situation with empathy, knowing that both the person receiving help and the one giving it are experiencing emotional and physical challenges. So, as we grow older, it's vital to maintain our sense of independence as much as possible. Whether it's learning to adapt, finding new ways to stay active, or seeking external support, we should strive to be proactive about our needs without overwhelming those around us. For George and Anne, a balance between accepting help and maintaining independence would have allowed them to continue enjoying their relationship without the strain of one-sided caregiving. By preserving independence while also embracing help when necessary, we can ensure that our relationships remain strong, healthy, and fulfilling. Reason number 4, you stop caring about appearance. Martha, 78, had always been known for her impeccable sense of style. She was the kind of woman who knew how to accessorize a scarf, always had a fresh coat of lipstick, and never left the house without looking polished. Her vibrant outfits and well-kept appearance made her the talk of the town, and people admired her for how she carried herself well into her later years. However, over the past few months, something had shifted. Martha, feeling the wear of aging and perhaps focusing more on comfort than appearance, started to let her grooming slip. She stopped putting effort into her clothes, wearing the same worn-out cardigan and slacks every day. Her once carefully styled hair was now left unkempt. At a recent reunion with old friends, Martha couldn't help but notice the whispers behind her back. Her friends, who once admired her style, now whispered that she had let herself go. It was a hard pill to swallow, but the truth was, some people started to judge her as she aged. It's natural for our priorities to shift as we get older, and physical appearance often takes a back seat to other concerns like health or family. We may no longer have the energy or desire to keep up with trends, and that's okay. However, the way others perceive us doesn't always align with our personal choices. To some, neglecting appearance can feel like a sign of giving up or not taking care of oneself. For Martha, her appearance was once an integral part of her identity, and when that changed, her friends couldn't help but notice. It's a stark reminder that, while we may become less concerned with how we look, others may still judge us based on those outward appearances. Martha's friends weren't being malicious, but rather expressing their surprise at seeing someone who had once taken great pride in her appearance now looking different. This judgment is an unfortunate reality many older people face. As we age, we may stop caring about societal expectations of beauty, and that can lead to misunderstandings or negative assumptions from others. When Martha's friends saw her stop taking care of her outward appearance, they may have felt that she was neglecting herself, perhaps even giving up on life in some way. While they didn't understand the reasons behind her change, their whispered comments about her letting herself go reflected a broader societal tendency to judge the elderly based on how they present themselves. Martha had reached a point where she felt more comfortable in her own skin, but others didn't always see it that way. The lesson here is that self-care and maintaining a sense of identity through old age is crucial. While we might not care about our appearance in the way we once did, taking the time to maintain basic grooming and clothing choices can make a difference in how we feel about ourselves and how others perceive us. It's not about looking young or fashionable, but about retaining some sense of pride in who we are, even as we age. Maintaining a routine of personal care can also help preserve our self-esteem, which can, in turn, positively affect our relationships with others. Even as we let go of societal expectations of beauty, it's essential to care for ourselves in ways that make us feel good. Martha's experience shows that outward appearances still matter to some people, and while we shouldn't live for others' approval, it's helpful to be mindful of how our choices might affect those around us. Taking care of our appearance can help us stay connected with those who may value that part of our identity, and it can also remind us that we still have value, no matter our age. In conclusion, while it's natural to care less about our appearance as we grow older, it's important to strike a balance between personal comfort and maintaining some level of self-care. Doing so helps us preserve our identity and dignity and prevents the risk of feeling disconnected from others. As Martha's story shows, the way we present ourselves to the world can impact how we are perceived, even as we age. It's about finding joy in the way we look, whether it's through keeping up with old habits or embracing new ones, as long as it's done with love for ourselves. Reason number 5. You start to be negative about the future. Edwin, 82, was once the embodiment of optimism. He had always been the kind of person who could find a silver lining in any situation, no matter how challenging life became. But as the years went by, Edwin began to change. His once hopeful attitude started to fade as he became consumed by concerns about his declining health, his financial situation, and the uncertain future that lay ahead. Conversations that once revolved around fun memories or future plans began to center around what could go wrong. He worried about his medical bills, the possibility of losing his independence, and what would happen when he could no longer care for himself. Edwin's family, who had always admired his upbeat nature, started to notice the shift. They were no longer eager to visit him, finding his constant negativity draining. They began avoiding discussions with him, unsure of how to respond to his worries. What had once been a joyful relationship now felt strained, as Edwin's fear of the future overshadowed the connection they shared. As we age, it's natural to have some concerns about the future. Health issues, financial strain, and the reality of mortality can all weigh heavily on the mind. However, when we become consumed by these thoughts, it can create an environment of negativity that affects our relationships. Edwin's family wanted to enjoy their time with him, but his focus on the worst-case scenarios left them feeling helpless and uncomfortable. They didn't know how to offer comfort or support, especially when every conversation turned to more worries. The negativity wasn't just a burden on Edwin, it was slowly eroding the positive connections he once had with his loved ones. The more he fixated on the future, the less he was able to appreciate the present moment. This shift in Edwin's attitude is something many older people face as they contend with the realities of aging. While it's important to acknowledge the challenges that come with getting older, it's equally crucial to maintain a hopeful outlook. Constantly focusing on the negatives, whether it's health issues, fears about death, or regrets about the past, can make others feel uncomfortable. They might feel unsure of how to respond, and over time they may begin to distance themselves, not because they don't care, but because they feel overwhelmed by the persistent negativity. Conversations about the future should allow for hope, possibility, and even humor, rather than solely dwelling on what could go wrong. The lesson here is that maintaining a positive outlook, even in the face of challenges, is essential for keeping our relationships strong and vibrant. When we focus too much on the negative aspects of aging, it can cast a shadow over our interactions with others. But when we find ways to stay hopeful, to celebrate the present, and to look forward to what lies ahead with a sense of optimism, we not only improve our own quality of life, but also invite others to remain connected to us. Hope is a powerful force that can uplift both ourselves and those around us. Edwin's family wasn't rejecting him because they didn't care. They were simply unsure of how to cope with his constant pessimism. They wanted to be there for him, but it's hard to offer support when every conversation feels like a reminder of all the worst things that could happen. It's important for both the person experiencing the challenges and their loved ones to find ways to talk about difficult subjects in a balanced way. Acknowledge the hardships, but also recognize the moments of joy, the progress, and the possibilities. This balance will help avoid alienating those who want to be a part of your life, but are overwhelmed by the constant doom and gloom. In conclusion, the key to maintaining healthy relationships as we age lies in our ability to maintain a hopeful outlook on life, despite the challenges that may arise. Life doesn't end when we grow older. In fact, there's still so much to look forward to, even if that just means finding joy in small moments. Edwin, like all of us, had fears about the future. But by focusing too much on those fears, he inadvertently pushed away the very people who wanted to be there for him. Acknowledging the struggles but also embracing a hopeful perspective can help us stay connected with others and ensure that we continue to enjoy meaningful relationships, no matter our age. Conclusion. As we've seen today, the way we approach aging can have a significant impact on our relationships. Whether it's being set in our ways, overbearing with advice, becoming too dependent, letting go of our appearance, or focusing on the negative, these changes can unknowingly create distance with those we love. But the good news is that by staying adaptable, listening more, finding a balance in independence, maintaining self-care, and embracing a hopeful outlook, we can strengthen our connections and enjoy the later years of life to the fullest. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, leave a comment below. Let me know if you can relate to any of these points by commenting 9 or Z. Until next time, take care and don't forget to stay positive.